Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel here, Wine with Jimmy. Delighted to have you on board. This is a wine educational channel which is designed to help those of you taking, of course, your challenging examinations and studying the world of wine to really help you get more confidence so you can, of course, smash your examinations out of the park. Welcome here to a series on the wines of the world. That's the D3 section for the WSET level 4. That's the diploma. And this is on the south of France, looking at Roussillon. This is series 3 of 4 included within the south of France. And this is part 1, looking at the climate, weather, grape growing, and winemaking. This is a free video. But parts 2 and 3 on the AOCs and wine business are only available on my e-learning portal over at www.winewithjimmy.com. So lots of exclusive video content over there, and also extra things to help you, such as multiple choice questions, flashcards, those kind of things. It's really useful for you to sign up to that. It's also ad-free as it's not hosted on the world of YouTube. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, the best thing on this video is to comment below. Make sure you click like and subscribe, or alternatively, you can get in touch via all of the social media that you see at the bottom of every slide. So let's rock and roll. Begin with the world of Roussillon down in the south of France. And here is a map of the area. Now, an overwhelming majority of Roussillon's production, that's about 3/4 of it, is in fact produced by 60 cooperative wineries. So that's a real interesting fact in this area. It's set up very much as a rugged landscape because it's strewn into the Pyrenees, for example. So you have lots of small ownership of land, farmers, which it's easier for those people to sell to cooperatives. So rugged, wild, and scarcely populated landscape. And in fact, it's exceptionally well known here for its fortified wines, vin du natural. And in fact, the Roussillon produces 80%, 80% of all France's vin du natural. A little bit on the history here. So viticulture was quite slow to take root, excuse my pun, in Roussillon compared to the Languedoc. And that's really down to its topography, its landscape, the geography here. It's very rugged and very difficult to work. So this limits things like travel and cultural exchange as well. And for this reason, around 500 years of foreign rule left a real Catalan language influence in this area and culture as well, which still exists to this day. The Aragonese across the border in northeast Spain planted their grapes in Roussillon. And as you'll see, from the 13th to the 18th century, Roussillon was a part of Aragon. And in this time, we have that introduction of Spanish grapes. Spanish Carignana becomes Carignan in France. Spanish Mataro becomes Mourvèdre. And Spanish Macabeo becomes Macabeu in France as well. So you have this linguistic change because, of course, the grapes are changing in terms of their locality, crossing the border. Spain's traditional winemaking styles, that's your full-bodied, earthy, slightly oxidized whites, became quite mainstream in this area and were actually maintained until the 1990s in Roussillon. It was one of the areas of France which was one of the last to really join the modernization and technology uplift of using things like, of course, stainless steel and temperature-controlled fermentations. And new oak barrels here actually are still considered quite a luxury. So they aren't typically used in this area. The climate of Roussillon. So it has a very warm and windy Mediterranean climate with rainfall which is moderate to low, about 500 to 600 millimeters annually. It has really great sunlight hours, over 300, and therefore the climate here is generally very favorable to grape growing, though of course drought can be a problem in certain years. The combination of the winds, which Roussillon has a lot, has a bit of an effect from the Tramontana, the winds that come from the Mediterranean and the winds from the Pyrenees, and in combination with the low rainfall, means that the disease pressure here is reduced. So we don't have much of a need for spraying or combating against those kind of issues. But also these climatic conditions of, lots of windy conditions and low rainfall, which can raise the concentration in the fruit but reduce the yield, means that that's a big factor. A reduction of yield in this area is typical. And also, therefore, income is reduced because there is less of a yield being produced. A very high proportion of organic viticulture here, about 15% of the land. It could be more, but of course it is around 15% and enabled by warm and of course dry and windy, sunny conditions. Grape varieties, as you can see, the most important are Grenache Noir, Syrah, and Carignan Mourvèdre is the fourth red variety, and they're important for reds and rosés. Your white varieties, at about 10%, we have Muscat, which is used predominantly for fortified wines, but not completely. Macabeo, which is an interesting one for whites. There you go. There's actually two types of Muscat, which total towards 17 or 18%. Macabeo, which is used for whites. I will actually cover that in much greater detail in a Spanish video when we look at Catalunya and also La Rioja. So the vineyard management here is that traditionally, just like in the Languedoc, we have bush vine training systems. Many of these remain here more so than in Languedoc. They are well adapted to the climate, providing some shade to the bunches, as there are a small bunching of foliage, for example. But most of the work has to be done by hand, which of course leads to an expense. And as with the Languedoc, but in a smaller percentage, there has been a recent trend towards trellising, certainly on the flatter parts of the Côte de Roussillon, for example. There we go. And very important to understand that this is actually, though, less than the Languedoc, for example. And winemaking here is very much ditto to Languedoc, very similar to Languedoc. Red wines can be made by either traditional pressing and then maceration on the skins, ranging from about a week to 2 or 3 weeks, or by carbonic maceration, depending, of course, on the style of wine that one wants in this example. So there we go, a shorter part one there for the Roussillon. A lot of it is actually emulating and copying the Languedoc. So of course, there's a bit of an overlap there. So make sure you fully watch the Languedoc series before this. Please do join me for part 2 on the AOCs of Roussillon. So looking at Côte de Roussillon village, and also the named villages, and then other important AOCs like Collioure, for example, as well. Any comments, questions, or concerns, of course, please do get in touch. Comment on this video below. Make sure you click like and subscribe. And of course, if you do find yourself in the United Kingdom, please come and see me at one of my establishments for a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.